Hello everyone, Cindy Saltman here for Game Show Gumbo, and it's time for, not too often, but should be more often, Random Thoughts of Randomness. And this time around, I want to talk about the game show generation gap, as it were. This mainly stems from the new version of Hollywood Squares. And we're not here to talk about the faults or great parts of the new revival of Hollywood Squares. Just if you want that, 10 on 10, no notes. But what I want to talk about is some of the conversation that I found online, in that the show isn't that good because it doesn't remind people of the Peter Marshall version of Hollywood Squares, especially from the older generation, those that predate me. I was born in '86, and I never watched the Peter Marshall version when it was out. I mean, I wasn't born yet. I mean, I grew up watching the John Davidson version and the Tom Bergeron version of Hollywood Squares. I didn't watch any Peter Marshall episodes until they reran on GSN in 2002, and that was the NBC primetime and syndicated episodes. And when I saw them, I was like, that's cool. I'll record a few episodes of it, but my heart will always belong to the John Davidson version and the Tom Bergeron versions of the show. And it's that generation gap that I want to talk about. Because if you take a look at who's behind the show, and I'm not talking about just the producers like Drew Barrymore, who's the center square. I'm pretty sure Nate Burleson's got a producer credit or something, even though he's the host. Some of the panelists, actually the majority of the panelists, and people who are working on the show, whether as grips or PAs or the real hard workers behind the scenes, they never watched the Peter Marshall version. They're probably my age or even younger. That means they've watched the John Davidson or Tom Bergeron versions. And when they put that show together, they drew upon those memories while putting the show together. It's also why I think it's important to keep that in mind when it comes to looking at the revivals that came out. I mean, I remember the fervor that happened when Pressure Luck got revived with Elizabeth Banks. Like a lot of the older fans and some younger fans were like, "Oh no, they're ruining the format with a bonus game," and yet it's one of the most exciting bonus games, or I can't even call it a bonus game. It's one of the most exciting end games that the show or the genre has ever seen. I mean, it took the risk aspect and just magnified it and made it bigger and bigger, and to the point where if they're at the cusp of winning it all, you really feel for them when they just miss it or they hit a whammy and all of that hard work is gone. Like, I think some of the older generation kind of fears change. Uh, and some people in the genre do as well, either my age or younger. But we can't dwell on the past when it comes to these new version shows. And what I mean by the past, I mean the distant past. Like, even though these shows might have originated in the 60s and the 70s, it's kind of nice to see a fresh take on it. And I have a feeling we're going to get this conversation again when Tic Tac Doe comes out in April for Game Show Network. And I think another point I want to bring up is not the fans themselves, not us in our, the game show fandom. online. But I'm talking about regular viewers who probably who were like in their teens or early 20s watching the John Davidson or the Tom Bergeron, or essentially the Tom Bergeron version, and maybe they're my age now. They're in the 30s, maybe early 40s. They've got kids, and they're watching Hollywood Squares. Thinking of, I remember that show was really good. And they're seeing the new version. They probably think it's really good too. But I think the most brain breaking is this fact that's gonna might rattle some people. Starting in September 2025, Drew Carey would have hosted The Price is Right for 18 years. So, think about it. If you were born in September 2007, all you would have watched growing up on TV, I'm not talking about, fast channel stuff, I mean over the air broadcast TV. They're gonna become contestants and they will only know the Drew Carey version. Like, they will look up to Drew Carey like my generation and older looked up to Bob Barker when he was hosting The Price is Right. Like, how Bob Barker was, when we were sick at home, we would have the chicken noodle soup and we would watch The Price is Right and maybe Young and the Restless afterwards, if depending on where you are in the country. That is what their respect is to Drew Carey and The Price is Right. And as someone who's getting up there in years, I mean, my life has changed a lot. Like, I'm not doing like countless videos. I'm not dedicating all my time to game show gumbo or even game shows in general. I mean, I got my own life to live now. And it's kind of refreshing to be away from it all and just become a casual fan every now and then. And it's going to be like this for the younger generation who watch TV. I mean, the last gasp of the 80s and 90s in game shows that we had was Pat Sajak hosting Wheel of Fortune. That's gone now. He's now retired. He will still be doing Celebrity Wheel of Fortune for ABC. When, I don't know. But after that, it's all Ryan Seacrest. And Vanna White's still there, but who knows how much longer she's got left. And we have a new generation that's growing up with a new batch of shows that they'll look back fondly on, like 25 Words or Less, or Family Feud with Steve Harvey. And that's another generation gap thing I want to touch on. Like, once again, my age or younger grew up with the Ray Combs version, or whether it be Louis Anderson, Richard Karn, John O'Hurley. And I see the Steve Harvey version, and that's my version of Family Feud. Kind of like how my version of Family Feud was Ray Combs. And people older might decry it, saying Richard Dawson would be rolling in his grave because of what Steve Harvey's done to this show. And they blame Steve Harvey, they blame the producers, yada, yada, yada. But they forget the times they are changing. People change. And the way we view entertainment has changed. And Family Feud has changed with the times. Whether that be, some of the bawdiness being more front right than anything else. That just is how it's presented right now. Like, they will still have the double entendres, as it were, and I would like to think if they could get away with it, or if they could have figured out a way to get away with it, you would have seen that on the Ray Combs version, or maybe the Richard Dawson version. But it also comes with, different producers have different views on how a show should be made. And the way Gabby Johnson is treating Family Feud right now is a key to success. She's done a really damn good job with it and has been ever since she took over control. If I'm going to leave you all with this. Don't be afraid of the new. Don't be afraid that something you grew up with back in the day is brought back and has a new fresh coat of paint, some new people behind the helm, and just enjoy it for what it is. You're going to enjoy game shows a lot more with that mindset. I'm starting to enjoy game shows a lot more with that mindset. Even though, I still talk about bad game shows on the show once in a while, but I don't make it my entire personality anymore. My personality now is full-time job, work hard, and just hang out with friends whenever I can. It's that personal connection with people, whether it be on the internet or in person, that makes life worth living. Well, I'd like to thank you all for listening to this little random thoughts of randomness rant when it comes to the generation gap. I thank all of you for watching. If you want to hear more, subscribe to the channel. If you want to throw a couple bucks our way, and get the reviews and the home game for earlier, become a Patreon backer at patreon.com/gameshowgumbo. Once again, I thank everybody for watching, and don't fear change.